Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Supreme Decisions Legal Minute podcast. And I'm your host, Supreme Decisions. Today, I actually want to start off with a poem or prayer that I actually like to recite because it gives you greater understanding and more self-awareness. It's the Prayer of Serenity. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as the pathway to peace, taking, as he did, the sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that he will make all things right if I surrender to his will, that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with him forever in the next. Now, most of us don't get past the first couple of verses. And most of us have no idea how to even apply the first one. Change the things that I can change. One of the hardest things or most difficult things that people go through is change. Change causes trauma. Change forces you to look at yourself. I even had a friend of mine tell me there are no atheists in foxholes because everyone is looking for something greater than themselves. I myself learned sitting in a courtroom facing damn near 2,000 years. Damn, the no good deed goes unpunished, but the simple fact that a man shows himself when the pressure's on. We elevate athletes when they seem to not be bothered by pressure, when they seem to become greater than everything around them. They even become greater than the moment. That for them is knowing thyself, accepting what it is, not living in the world of should or would, but it's understanding the only thing they can make sure that is done is the things they do themselves, and they cannot control the outcome or aspects of others. That's why a lot of you are listening to my channel. A lot of you are listening to my podcast because you're trying to figure out how it is or what it is that you can do to defend yourself. You're trying to figure out who it is or why it is. And in the self-reflection, it teaches you who you are as a person. Because human nature only gives you two options. Are you a person that fights, or are you a person that flies? And many of us are faced with the harsh reality that we go straight to flight. And most of us don't understand it comes from events that have happened in our lives. I've always been one of those people that I used to fly off the handle. I wouldn't think. Now I'm a thinker. I allow the thought process to happen. But because it now becomes calculated. Everything that I do is a chess move. But it's understood as I understand the things that I control, which is myself. So today, one of the things I'm going to talk about are emotions. Not emotions, but motions that you're probably going to see or can see during a trial, somewhere around it, and give you kind of the effects of them on you. Now, a lot of this comes from the University of North Carolina School of Government. It's one of their sections of law where they're teaching you trial preparation for the most part. And these are some of the things that they set forth for a superior court. Most of you understand the court structure. The superior court is the one that deals with felonies, actual harm or mostly actual harm to another person or property. Now, when you're going through this, I'm going to give you a couple things that most people have no idea what they are or never heard of, but I want you to take notes. I want you to think about it. I actually want you to look at them because I want you to at least understand the guidance, because that's the purpose of this podcast. That's the purpose of the Supreme Decisions channel. That's actually the purpose of the Supreme Decisions brand, is to actually give you guidance and direction, because most of the information that you're going to get or that you have been finding is either incomplete or incorrect. This is one of those things that offer you another step into seeing what this world really is, getting you out the way it would be or the way it should be. I'm giving it to you as this world is, as our country's legal system is at its moment. Now, the first motion most of you will know as an entry of appearance. This is a motion that every attorney has to file when they're representing someone. Now, when you're doing this for yourself, it's you representing your own interests. The reason why you file this is because it gives you two things. It notifies the court, one, that you're going to represent your own interests. You are your own choice of counsel. That is a Sixth Amendment thing. That is a thing that we talked about with, I believe it was Strickland v. Washington. These are things that we have to actually go through and understand that. Now, if you're doing something even such as traffic, because traffic has been criminalized, even a citation can get you jail time. Ask the more than 840,000 people that are currently in jail for bond issues dealing with traffic violations. Thank you, prison reform. Gotcha. Now, the one thing that you would do if you're dealing with a traffic situation, and for me, it's an easy one, because I always tell people that Latin is the language of the court. And I often hear, well, Latin is dead. Well, don't go to court. That's the easy. If you think Latin is dead, don't go to court. Because Latin is the one thing that actually moves the court. Now, instead of or in conjunction with your entry of appearance, you will write a notice of appearance di bene esse. Now, yes, that's Latin. It is therefore a special restricted appearance designed to allow the accused to meet and discharge the contractual requirement of making an appearance, and at the same time to refuse to submit himself to the jurisdiction of any alleged plaintiff, hence the court, until someone or some judicial department prosecutor makes all disclosures, specifically by producing a complaint of damage or injury signed and verified by the injured party. Now, that sounds like a whole bunch of BS and a whole bunch of stuff that doesn't make a lot of sense. But now I'm going to break it down to you, because you have this Supreme Court case, because I give it to you that way. It's for the better understanding, because I'm giving you these not only so you can actually just have something to run with, but for something to actually lay these on a foundation. An entry or appearance DBNS is designed to permit a party to a proceeding to refuse to submit this person's jurisdiction of the court unless it is formally determined that he has forever waived that right. And that comes from Farmers Trust Company v. Alexander. Now, basically, the only thing this does is gives people notice that you have to follow the rules of the court, which means all jurisdictional prowess must be placed on the record. Notice how when I say it, it sounded crazy. However, when you're reading the articles of the Constitution and you understand that aspect, you now see, because real law is done through the Supreme Court rulings. It's not my opinion. It's not crazy talk. It's actually the talk that is supposed to be placed in front of you. The next one you actually do is a motion for discovery. Now, a lot of times these are things that I've gone over, with nauseum for the most part. But it's one of those things that people don't ask for in detail. The detail of a discovery is mostly the most important thing for me, because whenever you're doing that and you have a full understanding of what goes into that, you then have an opportunity to provide the proper defense that you need. And that is the one thing that is required to have due process and a fair trial. You know, those things that are stuck in the Constitution that everyone swears to uphold and defend. Now, I'm not going to go through the list of discovery. I'm not going to go through, because here's a great part about it. I've actually gone through and made a list of 14 things I generally ask for, you know, because most encounters occur at a traffic stop. While it's not necessarily a template, but it is a guide that's available. And when you have that, you have an opportunity to then go forward with it. But one of the things I often tell people is get the arrest warrant, get the search warrant applications, because those are things that have to be done, because those are the things that set up the probable cause. We also have the Supreme Court hearings Supreme Court decisions that stated that simply a police officer doesn't have the cognitive power or means, mindset, what have you, to make a probable cause determination. That has to either be done through consent by you or a judge. Oftentimes you'll have a cop that's overzealous and I smell this, or I'm just doing that without a pretext. But it's only because they want to make sure you don't have full grasp of what it is they can and can't do. Those things open opportunities for you to do one of these things called a motion to suppress. Motion to suppress can either be done through MAP hearings, can be done through Wade hearings, even a plain out motion to suppress, where you can actually ask for evidence to be excluded because the officer did not get a warrant, did not have consent. Now, what happens if you don't have the prosecutor, once they've been notified by your entry of appearance and then sent over their motion of discovery? What happens then? One of the things that you can also do to help protect yourself is a motion to compel. Now, a motion to compel, I've gone over that as well, because it's just reinforcing that you requested discovery. The one thing I actually love is the simple thing is, even in context of you just filing the entry of appearance, even when the prosecutor decides to go ahead and I'm going to file charges, whether you ask for it or not, generally it's codified that it has to be turned over within 10 days, because if they're making a charging decision, they must have evidence to go by. But again, we remember the Tommy Sotomayor question. We remember the things that he said about the 5 levels of government. Oh, I guess you got to go back and listen to the podcast on that. But understanding, these are also where malicious prosecution comes in. These are also where these Brady violations come in, because it's already been established once it is shown that evidence is not used for these charges. Now, you also have an opportunity to do this thing called a motion to dismiss. One of my favorites in certain cases, depending on who's the opponent, is you can actually file a motion for sanctions because of due process violations, for the simple facts of not turning over discovery. You can actually have motions for the deposition. You can actually have requests the actual signed deposition from a judge after a hearing. You can also request for the transcripts. Now, the one thing I love is the pen is mightier than the sword. You've been given this, you've been told this, 100 times. You also had the Supreme Court case I gave you where it talked about any right that is waived must be done in writing. Well, guess what? That same thing, any right that's being enforced that remains intact must be done in writing. Now, most people say, well, I'm going to write an affidavit and I'm going to put it on the record. Most people have no clue how an affidavit even works. An affidavit is actually just testimony. Affidavit means nothing until trial. So an affidavit carries no weight until it's spoken. But here's the next thing affidavit does. It also gives the other side your playbook, because you can't argue with yourself, because everything that you say has to be proven, whether you're on offense or defense. Understand that? Because it's not what you know, it's what you can prove. But understand, anything that you say has to be proven, whether you're on offense or defense. And that is due process. That is standing, because if it's not proving, if there's no proof of what's being said, it's hearsay. And hearsay is inadmissible. And guess what? You can actually have a motion to dismiss evidence or lack thereof. One of my other favorites is a motion for a bill of particulars. Now, this is one of the ones I've used in North Carolina several times. I've used it in Louisiana several times, because these are motions where the bill of particular, I actually did 2 videos on it, because there are certain states that this carries more weight in, because it is codified under bill of particulars, because it restricts the prosecutor from bringing up anything that there is no evidence that supports any of it. Why? But here's the most important thing of all this stuff that I'm saying, because right now I'm rambling. The most important part of this entire thing is the simple thing of understanding you're not preparing to win every battle. You're positioning yourself not to lose. I'm going to say that one more time. You're not preparing yourself to win every battle. You're positioning yourself not to lose. Because the whole context is, even whenever I'm prepping someone for any of this, I always ask them, what's your level of justice? What is it that you're looking for at the end of all of this? Because if you can't begin with the end in mind, when there's any little detraction from that, you're going to quit. It's going to be too much. That's where the knowing thyself comes in at. That's where understanding, changing the things you can change. Because the would and should does not exist, especially not in a courtroom, because it has nothing to do with the truth. Because here's the thing. It was a song I used to listen to, and he said, you want the truth, go to church. I know it hurts. He doesn't talk about a courtroom. But if you want the truth, go to church. And then you'll find out the truth is not even there anymore. However, going through this and understanding the boxing in, the understanding you can control you, and understanding this is chess, not checkers. The greatest understanding I want anyone to have is simply this. The paperwork cannot fight for you. You have to stand up and look the devil in the eye yourself. Many of us are unable to do that because that requires us to understand how powerful we are. That's why misery waddles and looks for company. Because misery allows you to stay the same. Misery allows you to look for the worst. Misery allows you to accept things that are not good for you and are not benefiting you. It is not our darkness that we most fear. It is our light. When I read that poem to you 2 years ago, there was a reason. There was a reason behind it. Because at the end of all of this, you have to be able to look yourself in the mirror and understand what it is that you are willing to go through. Because success and sacrifice, they are not just names. They're not just words. There shouldn't even be things on a t-shirt. Because sacrifice comes before success, even in the dictionary. If you're not willing to stand up for yourself, you cannot then make excuses for others not standing with you. When I sat in that courtroom and I sat being pro se, it didn't matter how angry I got because 13 people chose that I helped to testify against me, but couldn't figure out what it is that I did wrong. I actually had one admit on the stand that he had took a 5-year deal for something that wasn't even illegal. I want you to admit he was so afraid. He was so controlled by fear that he never thought. And then he ended up sentencing himself to 5 years in prison for something that wasn't even illegal. Let that sink in. He went to prison for 5 years as a deal for something that was not illegal. They charged him with stealing his own stuff. And not in the OJ type. He was actually in court with the people he was arguing with. He was charged just because he knew me. He accepted the deal just because he knew me. Because they told him that what I was doing was illegal. Yet he did nothing wrong. He then got upset with me because I won the case because the jury decided I was not guilty of what I was charged with. Let that sink in. So if it was about the truth, why would he have to be intimidated into taking a deal for something that wasn't illegal? If it was about the truth, if he understood what he was doing was right, why would he then think what they were saying to him was real? I want you to understand, because again, all these motions, I filed them with hundreds of people, literally. I've actually had a judge tell me standing in court, you can't represent him, I'm going to have you arrested. It's funny because she didn't. And at no time did I ever call myself an attorney. And at no point would I ever call myself an attorney. I would never allow myself to be limited on my abilities because my light doesn't scare me. The simple fact that people say things and they allow these sayings to be bigger than what it actually is just amazing to me. Because at the end of the day, I trust me. And I actually watched Gilbert Arenas talk to a guy the other day, and it was hilarious to me. Because the guy was like, Gilbert, you're a ball hog, and you did this and you did that. And okay, cool. Gilbert, that's what he said, cool. He said, but I was paid to shoot that thing. And then he was asked a direct question, which was the most amazing question. It was a great question out of the entire interview. The one thing he was asked was, so if the game is on the line and you got 3 guys on you and somebody else is wide open, you going to take that shot? Gilbert answered yes. He said, because I trust me more than I trust you. He accepted what went along with it. That was the most beautiful thing I had ever heard in my life. I accept it. I trust me more than I trust you. I trusted me more than I trusted an attorney to represent me to get my picture painted. I trusted me more than I was fearful of the 2,000 years they were trying to give me. I trusted me more than I cared about the outside noise of everybody else that was scared. I think last time I talked about this, I gave you a football analogy. I talked about being run over, the cutting off my nose to spite my face, ensuring mutual destruction. I also gave you the ideals of I am willing to lose my eye if we're going an eye for an eye. I gave you that. But I want you to understand this. Today, I stand here and I give you one thing. I can give you every court case. I can give you every motion. I can give you everything that you could possibly need to fight. That fight is still yours. The context of accepting the things that you can change and accepting the things that you cannot change are yours. Because the wisdom to know the difference is the actual understanding of what it is that you are willing to go through to get there. Yes, it is scary to look the devil in the eye. Yes, whenever I say it takes a monster to beat a monster. Yes, all those things are true. Still doesn't change anything that I said. When we're doing this, the things that come across from me sometimes seems harsh. I don't care. It's your feelings. Do what it is that you like to do with them. But at the end of the day, it's to make you better. That is also your choice. You're listening because you want to be better. I'm speaking, doing something I don't really like doing because that is also my choice. I understand this knowledge that I have isn't mine to keep. I understand the experiences that I have are not mine for me. I understand that the path that's being laid is not just for me. It's not just for right now. It wasn't just from 2012. It wasn't just from 2008. It wasn't just from 2006. It wasn't from 1994. It was none of those. All those are from instances. All those were leading up to today. All those are roadmaps for tomorrow. I could keep giving you these motions, but it means nothing unless you understand how they work, understand the verbiage that goes in them, and then two, how to fight with them. Understand, giving you a weapon means nothing. My brother used to always tell me, stop handing out paperwork. Stop just giving this to them and letting them run off because you're giving a handgun to a child. You don't know how it's going to end, but you're going to end up on the news. And guess what? I was on the news for an entire year, from literal coast to coast, because I constantly gave handguns to children. Understand, I can give this to you. Those that are going in my masterclass are going to have it handed to them. But they're also going to be given other things that go along with it. They're going to be given the matrix training. Because understand, Neo, as they told him, you want the first and you won't be the last. Everyone is the one. Somebody's the one. You wasn't the first one. You're not going to be the last one. You wasn't the first Morpheus. You won't be the last Morpheus. There's going to always be another teacher. There's going to always be other students. There's going to always be new experiences, new expectations, new decisions. But you're going to have to be able to use them. You're going to have to be able to learn them. You're going to have to be able to apply them. And that's always going to be your choice.